I'm Hibaaq Osman from Karama, and Karama works on women, peace and security. Feminist foreign policy is one that firstly recognizes the inequality that exists in our societies and are reflected and magnified in the relations and interactions between countries. The second point is it's a policy that actively seeks to end those inequalities in a sustained and coherent way. While I think it's useful that countries like Sweden led on introducing feminist foreign policy, at government level, this is the latest step in a much more longer journey. As activists, and as you rightfully said at the beginning, women working in conflict-affected countries, we have been talking about the issues that make feminist foreign policy such an important practice for many years. The effects of war on women and girls, the fact that you can't bring peace if you are selling weapons, and supporting scorched earth policies, the need for response, resolutions, and prevention that is people-oriented, people-centered. We have spent our lives talking about this. So, like you rightfully said, this is not something new. It's basically tweaking it to what we have already been doing. There's nothing magical about feminist foreign policy. Demilitarization, decolonization, intersectionality across identities, race, class, gender, sexual orientation, and so on. We have been talking about these issues and the need to base, your policies and decisions making around such principles for a long time. So really, it's not something really new. Maybe, the words and rhetoric is sort of new for some people. The most important thing is, international community can work together when there is a framework. Now, Security Council 1325, Security Council Resolution 1325 is turning into adult this year. It's 21 years, since it has been introduced officially. It has been a long time that we have been arguing for women to participate meaningfully in peace processes. If you draw, examples from Yemen or, Libya or Syria. And always been with us that really peace processes that include women are more likely to succeed and more likely to lead into peace. This is evidence. This is based on research and reality. And for that reason, it's not because we want women to be there, but it's extremely important that women are there because the likelihood of this peace agreement will succeed, or of succeeding it is for sure. Now, why are women when they get involved? Why is it so important? Because the truth of the matter is the people who pay the brunt of the war are women and children. Look what's happening in Israel now. See a woman with, either sheltering her kids, trying to protect them, or running with them. So women really suffer a lot when it comes to war. So this is an area which you have a robust evidence, a significant body of best practices, as well as international agreements in the form of 1325 and its 9 related resolutions. But as with all matters of policy and diplomacy, we have to distinguish between policy, rhetoric, and reality. On the Generation Equality Forum, for example, we are still having to demand the case for women's meaningful participation in peace a long time since the formulation of Women, Peace and Security agenda, and even longer since the campaign for its started. A stated commitment for feminist foreign policy is not the same thing as putting the concept into practice. We see this across policies and global diplomacy. How many states on the Human Rights Council regularly support or engage in human rights violations? That does not mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We fight on to ensure that rhetoric becomes a reality. Yeah, Well, of course, reality taught us that we cannot really, expect it to be immediately successful. We cannot expect feminist foreign policy to immediately be successful. It is a policy that has to be implemented across sectors. Ultimately, it has to be interwoven to what we already are doing. We have to be very clear. Feminist foreign policy is not something new. People have already been working on it on the ground. We just have to wave it in. There are big problems that need to be addressed if feminist foreign policy is going to be effective. We have a system in which processes have been getting in the way of feminist outcomes. Women and communities have not been involved. They cannot even get access to contribute. In diplomacy and in development, there are gatekeepers and key holders. Addressing the divides is something that should be at the heart of feminist foreign policy. It is not simply about changing personalities or bringing women into positions. There are many significant global positions now held by women. The EU, IMF, World Trade Organization. Putting a woman in charge of such organizations does not make it a feminist. Far from it. There are women who do not bring feminist agenda. There are women who don't even bring womanist agenda. And there are institutions that are fundamentally broken that even the most committed feminists could not change its direction if they could get appointed in the first place. But activism is all about carving out opportunities to bring change. Think of the Black Lives Matter in the United States. Racism is not a new problem in the United States. It has never hidden, either. It has never hidden. It's not a hidden. It never was a, hidden problem either. But Black and brown activists in the United States have been able to put racial injustice and inequality on the political agenda in a way that it does not since the Civil War. Civil rights movement. The problem that those activists are trying to address are still fast, and change is not going to be immediate or easy. But this is what activism is all about. The struggle goes on. You learn from the experience, this is really the true of civil society. The true role of civil society: the democratization of ideas, translation between the agenda of the community and the national and international agenda. When a civil society organization is truly rooted in its community, it's able to translate the terminology and frameworks into a language and practice that people understand. Take 1325. For the last 21 years now, our partners have been working to make the women, peace and security's agenda people's agenda, making it relevant to their community and responsive to their needs. Palestinian civil society has done really the best in this region. Really, really remarkable, work on translating 1325 into the reality on the ground in Palestine. They were the ones who led the development of the National Action Plan. People in the Arab region know very well the massive internal contradictions of international relations. A lot of us are used to being bombed into the peace. What we have also learned is how grassroots activists can use international frameworks to help us achieve the priorities of our community. Activists have been able to do that with a flawed and compromised processes, those which we were not involved in producing. It is not ideal, and clearly civil society must be involved, as we are in the generation equality. We might wonder, what we would achieve if only global and political leaders were new generation of Mandelas and Nkrumahs and Nehru. But we know what the challenges we face are, and we know the tools we have. What we can bring is our ingenuity and determination. That's really what's so unique, about the civil society, which is very different from governments and and others. Between concepts like feminist foreign policy gaining support and the global movements of racial justice, there is a serious opportunity that's opening up for discussion. Opening up discussion, decision making, I mean. This is absolutely vital for all kinds of problems that affect everyone, but which have a disproportionate effect on lower income. I mean, that. Countries, climate change, economic development, and security. Front and center should be demilitarization. This is the area that everyone is trying to avoid, but it should be the center and front of feminist foreign policy. The countries right now, like Sweden, that are leading this, are countries that are selling weapons for irresponsible governments. So it is time, especially for governments who talk about feminist foreign policy, to address the contradictions of selling, their arms at the same time. So this is an area that you will find people are going around it, but this is the center. What is good? Feminist foreign policy is not teaching us how to be activists. We have liberated countries by being, activists. But what we need to do is countries that are compromised terms of selling weapons cannot really at the same time be the ones that are going to bring peace. So the point is, we have to address, and as countries that are coming, that are non European or US or all this, we have to always look at ourselves and see what is the feminist foreign policy, what is in it for my community, for my country, for my people. Where can we bring, and work with the international community? We bring our needs, with our vision, and they bring their needs and their vision. And we come to that table as an equal, But, and it's always people to people that bring change. It's not just governments to governments. It's really, working together with other communities that believe that demilitarization is a core. The whole world is, a burning inferno, because of weapons. And we have to stop it. And we can only do this people by people. That's exactly what has happened, that incredible, demonstrations and protesting that has taken place in the United States and Europe for racial justice could also be done for demilitarization. So I think that we have to look outside, not just only governments, but we have to also see how we can really relate to other people and make sure that, by numbers, that we can really bring change and transformation on this issue. Globalization has shown that sovereignty is far less rigid in practice than governments like to project. Economics, geopolitics, the internet, this has been very successful in breaking down traditional ideas of sovereignty. Certainly much more so than international justice or the responsibility to protect have been. Perhaps we need to learn from globalization if we want to disrupt the current system to one that is more equitable and peaceful. War economies have been very smart in making themselves seem essential to politicians. They have been able to make decisions about military spending into decisions about jobs and votes rather than security. That is proving to be completely unsustainable. I mean, seriously, countries globally are spending vast sums on their militaries for decades, you know, regimes like Libya, look at Libya and Sudan, spend far more on weapons than education. My own country, Somalia, used to spend 2% on education and 98% on military. And look what happened in Somalia. You know, it didn't protect the people and it did not even protect the regimes. Are the security policies of European governments making their citizens feel any safer or doing much less for global security? The ongoing tragedy in the Mediterranean has not succeeded in either, you know, count. There won't be a single movement with government suddenly all concluding that a problem caused by weapons isn't going to be resolved by buying more weapons. But in that space, women are, you know, building bridges between communities. They are using both traditional methods of mediation and peace building, as well as leveraging international frameworks. Again, when we say international frameworks, we're also talking about human peace and, you know, security, where, you know, feminist foreign policy could be that work is increasingly being recognized, and it needs more support from the international community, from government, from donors, because it's, you know, change is coming, and we just have to, you know, we have to bring in the change, and we have to support that. And I think that's this is the beginning. That's why we are talking. You care about the issue, we care about the issue. We work on the issue, work on the issue. So this is where maybe academics and activists will come together and change the world.